A very good evening to all of you who have joined me in this impromptu live session on YouTube. I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I'm not here for a lot of time. I have just come here to talk about one thing that kind of struck my mind while I was watching a lot of news channels and a lot of people who were, well, let me just see if I am live or not, because it says that nobody is live. Should I wait? Should I kind of go ahead? All right, chuck it. So I just wanted to talk about, awesome. So we've got people commenting. Okay, great. One small thing that I wanted to talk about was Honey Singh and the domestic violence petition that has allegedly been filed against him. This is only news report. Oh, wow. So many people in just a moment. Anyways, fantastic. So I wanted to talk about Honey Singh and the possibility of going to jail for Honey Singh the rapper in the news very recently, because of the fact that allegedly his wife has filed a domestic violence petition against him in 30,000 courts, and summons has been issued to this rapper slash singer. A lot of occasions, husbands who come to me ask me about the possibility of going to jail in the domestic violence case, because usually what happens when a husband comes to me is that they say that my wife has filed this complaint against me, and there are these two matters which are pending. One is the 498A IPC case, which is dowry harassment provision, cruelty for the purpose of dowry, and the other case is the domestic violence case. So what kind of punishment can I face in the 498A case, and what kind of punishment can I face in the domestic violence case? So I have to first and foremost hold the horses back on these husbands and explain to them that, of course, 498A, which is cruelty for the purpose of dowry, 406, which is criminal breach of trust, and then a host of other allegations which could be false, could be true, are on a lot of occasions alleged by the wife against the husband. But apart from that, and of course there is a possibility of the person going to jail. But if there is the domestic violence petition which is there, a complaint which is filed under section 12 of the Domestic Violence Act, although yes, it is filed before the magistrate, at least in the great city of New Delhi. I know a couple of places, I think it's a couple of other states where the domestic violence petition is filed before the family court judge. But in Delhi at least, section 12 DV Act complaint is filed before the court of the magistrate, which then issues notice to the husband. But one thing that every husband should know, and in general as well, you should know, if you're a wife or if you are a relative of a couple involved in a matrimonial dispute, because you could be also roped in on false or true allegations, that domestic violence proceedings are only and only civil proceedings, which means that in these civil proceedings under the Domestic Violence Act, there are a couple of things that can be granted to the wife. None of them is the husband or any of his relatives against whom the allegations are there by the wife going to jail. However, if in any of those orders which are of a civil nature, which are given against the husband or his relatives in a Domestic Violence Act petition, and if there is non-compliance or there is willful disobedience of the orders of the magistrate in this particular situation, then the Domestic Violence Act does provide for penalty in the form of going to jail for a person who has committed disobedience of the order of the court. Now, what are the actual remedies which are available to a person, which is usually a wife, against the husband and also his relatives? The wife, first and foremost, the main provision for the Domestic Violence Act, which was passed in the year 2005, is the provision for grant of compensation for the domestic violence which has been meted out. Now, a few people have questioned what is domestic violence. Domestic violence has a very wide scope, not just physical, but mental, economic. There are approximately 10-15 headings which are given over there, and it is, it's very comprehensive as a remedy available to a wife who has suffered the, domestic violence as provided for under the Act at the hands of the husband or any of his relatives. At least that was what the intention of the Act was. Recently, the Supreme Court did say that, that a mother-in-law can also file a Domestic Violence Act petition against her daughter-in-law. In any case, the main reliefs, coming back to the main reliefs, that a person aggrieved under the Domestic Violence Act can seek against the perpetrator is one, the main thing is compensation for domestic violence meted out. Second is interim maintenance pending the Domestic Violence Act complaint. Third is residence orders in shared household. Of course, there is a lot of jurisprudence. I don't want to get into that. But if a wife says that in a house owned either by my husband or my in-laws, domestic violence was committed upon me, then I, as an aggrieved person, of course, all the other things will go on, but I also have a right to reside in that shared household. Apart from that, if the wife gets entry into the shared household by the order of the court, then she also has a right to seek the court's interference and seek eviction of the male members of that same shared household if they continue to inflict domestic violence upon her. And apart from that, there are certain other provisions which are ancillary and which allow the wife to secure these other rights already mentioned. Say, for example, directions to the husband not to alienate any of his the specified assets which are there, and several other directions which are possible. Long story short, if Honey Singh's wife has only filed a domestic violence petition against her husband, he does not stand to go to jail unless there is willful disobedience of the orders of the magistrate after those orders have been passed by the magistrate. Otherwise, he only has, a couple of things that can happen, which I've talked about. And apart from that, there is also, all of these is there. But apart from that, now if someone says, will Honey Singh not go to jail at all? Can we be 100% sure? That's not the case, because of the fact that usually if a wife has filed a Domestic Violence Act complaint against her husband, usually the, either prior in time or in the near future, you can be expecting a police complaint as well. This is something which usually happens when a wife is aggrieved, right? She will want to avail of all her legal remedies. So not just a Domestic Violence Act petition, it would be a police complaint as well, alleging 498A, 406 and any other thing that might have happened to her. It could not necessarily be dowry harassment, it could be something else entirely. Maybe she was never harassed for dowry. It's been several years of their marriage, from what I remember. And apart from that, one thing that she could definitely do is seek maintenance under section 125 of the Criminal Procedure Code. And also she could also file for divorce, and in that divorce petition she could also be seeking permanent alimony from Yo-Yo. And so if you think that in a Domestic Violence Act petition a person can be arrested, that is not the case, but there is still a significant amount of reason for you to worry, because there could be that police complaint, because of which, now I have talked about it in other places as well, but usually in the metropolitan cities the husbands don't really nowadays get arrested, but in smaller cities and the other states across the country, a lot of them, you still have the police arbitrarily wanting to go ahead, flouting the norms of the judgment of Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar passed by the Honorable Supreme Court, and still go in ahead and arrest the husband. So that's something that the person will have to be careful about. Even otherwise, Domestic Violence Act provisions can be very, very stringent. I have had clients who have suffered, get into a little bit of this thing, who've suffered extreme amounts of interim maintenance levied upon them, because of which the wife to a great extent has a lot of leverage when it comes to negotiations regarding an amicable divorce between the parties. So that is something that Yo-Yo and anyone else who is going through a tough time in his matrimonial life or her matrimonial life should keep in mind. I think that's all, folks. I don't really read the comments in this, but my goodness, dude, I'm not really sure how to answer any of this stuff. I might go live some other time, because this was quite a lot of fun and saved me a lot of trouble, because I was thinking I will, grab this camera, grab the mic and set it all up, then record it, edit it so that the voice is better. It's just so much of a hassle, this thing far more easier. I'm not sure whether I will stick to this format or not, but let's see how it goes.